Prime Minister promised to build the strongest economy in the G7. Instead, he's delivered the weakest. So, in the face of that, will the Prime Minister accept any responsibility for the dismal state of Canada's economy?
What is this government doing under the Prime Minister's leadership? Forging new trade relationships, forging new investment opportunities. We see the result in terms of foreign direct investment in a nation-building agenda that will lead, as I said, to new jobs.
The war of words being waged on Parliament Hill there over the latest economic data. Canada recorded its slowest growth since 2020. But nearly a year ago, Prime Minister Mark Carney swept into power on a promise of being the only person who could build the fastest growing economy in the G7. So will today's economic numbers have some political fallout? Let's ask our front bench. Sabrina Grover was a federal Liberal candidate in the 2021 election. She's now senior advisor at North Star Public Affairs. Melanie Paradis is a former communications director to Erin O'Toole. She's now the president of Texture Communications. Former interim NDP national director Carl Belanger is here. He's now the president of Traction Strategies. And here with me in studio is CTV News national correspondent Rachel Aiello. So Sabrina, I guess the big question that a lot of people have is, did Prime Minister Carney just overpromise when you look at these numbers? Because he did say the fastest growing economy in the G7. That is not what we are if you compare us to the rest of the other 6 countries.
Yeah, and I don't want to make this an economics podcast because I hate economics like in the details, but I do think that this is one of times where it's important to go beyond the headlines and actually look at some of the details that make up the economy beyond just that 0.6% economic contraction, right? So Canada's outperformed every G7 country since 2020, with the exception of the United States, on economic growth. We've seen, for example, I think in the speech yesterday by Pierre Poilievre, he talked about housing prices. Housing prices have actually contracted, adjusted for inflation in the last quarter. We've seen wage growth that's strong. We've seen unemployment decrease. So there's lots of parts of the economy that go beyond that 0.6% headline. So that's the economic side of things. On the political side, is it problematic for the Prime Minister? I think a little bit. But I also think that there is still that grace from Canadians recognizing some of these trade impacts and recognizing that trade continues to be volatile. I think what's more important for the Prime Minister, rather than kind of addressing this holistic economic growth piece, is to have a more clear communications plan and a more clear way to address the sectoral growth. So what are we seeing in agriculture, right? We've got deals now with China. Presumably we're going to have some sort of deal, I think, with India out of this trade mission. What are we seeing on the forestry side? What are we seeing on the aluminum side? I think that's where the details matter about the economic growth. I think overall, a small contradiction is not going to change his political fortunes, although I do think he will have to manage this.
But certainly, Melanie, something that the Conservatives are seizing on.
Yeah, absolutely, and they should, because Mark Carney was elected not on charm, but on competence. His brand has been all about understanding and fixing economies. And so when the economy underperforms, as it has been doing, it's a direct brand hit on him and on a reflection of his performance. But if we take a step back here, Canada has never fixed the underlying structural issue that we have at play here, which is productivity. And you hear economists talk about productivity all the time. What it really means is that we aren't building enough buildings, we aren't opening enough mines, and we aren't drilling enough oil. Like all the things that we're supposed to be doing, we aren't doing enough of it. Now, we've seen obviously the government talking about how they want to do that. They're saying the right things, but they really aren't moving quickly. And the real problem is that this problem has been ignored for like 10 years. Trudeau masked over this with an immigration plan masquerading as economic policy. The Liberals under Justin Trudeau thought that more people would mean more consumers, and that would mean more GDP. And they went from 300,000 immigrants a year to a target of 500,000 immigrants per year. And then in 2024, when the housing crisis just collided with that, they decided to rip the Band-Aid off. And now we're sitting here staring at the gaping wound that is productivity. And the question is, will Canadians give Mark Carney the time that is necessary? Has he been honest with Canadians about how much time this is actually going to take to fix and what the consequences of that are? Or is he going to keep saying that he's Mr. Fix-It? And then we'll see whether Canadians actually go for that for another round at the polls.
Yeah, Carl, and that is the question, right? And it almost sort of plays into what we're going to talk about in the next block is like, you know, what's that question that you put to Canadians when you go to the polls, if they end up doing that? And if he continues to say, I'm the only one who can fix it, but he's, you know, like, what's the amount of time that Canadians maybe go, okay, well, you said you were going to fix it, and it's still not fixed. What are you doing here?
And that's a bit of the paradox, right? The longer he waits, the less he's credible to make that claim. Because he has not fixed it, and he won't fix it maybe in time for a spring election, or for those who believe this could happen. So the truth is that, you know, growth is important, productivity, all these things are very important, of course. But what really matters to voters? Is it helping me make ends meet? Is it helping me afford food? Is it helping me pay rent? Is it helping me get the drugs I need for my family? Those are the things that matter to people. And they're all related. They're related to trade, they're related to growth, they're related to productivity. But that's where it hurts the Prime Minister politically, because he said, I will fix it. And we're still waiting. And so that's the albatross around his neck. The longer he waits and the longer he's not fixing it, the more he gives a chance to Pierre Poilievre to hammer him on that issue.
And Rachel, it becomes a bit of a communication issue as well for this government, because they can say it, but they're also maybe not showing their work as much.
Yeah, well, and that's just the heart of the challenge here for the Prime Minister, because he has promised to build at speeds not seen before. You know, this is a classic case of a big election commitment, a big promise that as your record is adjudicated, gets kind of put back in your face. We've seen this happen with every Prime Minister before him. But the challenge with the Prime Minister is facing right now is that he's promising major projects, things that are going to take a very long time to build. We heard from LeBlanc this week indicating the first few designations should be coming very soon. They are indicating once those are greenlit and shovels in the ground, ostensibly, you will see the economic improvements as a result of that. But I think that's why, Mike, you're also seeing them do short-term economic and more politically salient moves like the groceries benefit that he announced at the start of this parliament. So you have to keep in mind the fact that there needs to be those little band-aids along the way, those little reminders to Canadians in the short term, things that they might feel in their day-to-day while you are building those big projects behind the scenes that are going to take a long time to pay off and certainly will not be something he can cash in electorally for a very long time.
Yeah, and of course, because of what has happened in the past, no one will call them economic gimmicks. That is something that is no longer in the vernacular, apparently. But to Rachel's point,
Band-Aids work. Band-Aids work.
Well, I mean, depending on the size of the wound, Carl, yes.